Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe Muro. And now, here's Zoe.
Folks, how are you this morning? My name is Zoe Muro. It is truly my honor to be your host for Choice, your creative superpower, here on the New Thought Media Network. Each Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 noon Mountain Time, we consider ways for you to wield your superpower for the greatest good as you create your life experience. If you're coming back, it's good to see you. And if this is your first time, welcome to the show. Good morning, Peggy. Oh, I have to be the wise one? Oh, man. So much pressure. I am a religious science practitioner at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living in Oakland, California. I'm also a transformational coach. I work with people who are looking to live their lives to the fullest. Today's episode 11, we'll be exploring a relationship between choice and integrity. Integrity is a fascinating subject because the meaning of integrity, and therefore how we view choices related to it, can differ wildly from person to person. And strangely enough, for the same person, they can differ from circumstance to circumstance. Now, one would think that integrity would be somehow standardized, at least within an individual's own thinking and actions. But there's more to it than that. Some might refer to, extenuating circumstances. Others might say excuses. There's a lot to look at here. So let's get to exploring. I'd like to start with the idea of a physical context for integrity. For example, structural integrity or system integrity. Structural integrity, and I'll read this. Structural integrity is the ability of either a structural component or a structure consisting of many components to hold together under a load, including its own weight, without breaking or deforming excessively. System integrity is described in this way. It's the quality that a system has when it performs its intended function in an unimpaired manner, free from unauthorized manipulation of the system, whether intentional or accidental. Think about it. If you were to purchase, let's say, a life vest, you would want and expect that it's going to meet certain safety criteria, that it's going to perform to those safety standards as intended, and it's going to hold up under pressure. I mean, especially under pressure. That's integrity from a physical context. Now, the reason I wanted to present the physical context for integrity is because it actually reflects, or it has counterparts, if you will, to aspects of personal integrity. So, for example, in physical context, performing as intended. Personal context, walking the talk. Physical context, ability to hold together without distorting, especially under extreme pressure. Personal context, standing your ground. Physical context, being free from manipulation, either intentional or not. Personal context, staying true to your values. Yes, absolutely. Incorruptible. That is what we would like. Okay, so where does that leave us? If we look at the personal context, I want to see how that differs from the physical context. So perhaps we're thinking that integrity means that you act in a way that's in alignment with your values, or that you tell the truth as you see it, or it means living in accordance with your own moral code. Okay, now this is important. We've now taken the concept of consistently performing as intended, and we've added something that is truly significant. We have added the idea of values and a moral code. Now, there's another step that we can make, which would be to ask about spiritual integrity, or to add the aspect of spirituality into integrity. But I want to hold off on that one for a bit. I believe you'll see as we continue, because there's things I want to build on here. So let's try to pull all this together. And we'll start with this question. Do you choose to be in integrity? No, really, seriously, ask yourself right now, do I choose to be in integrity? Oh, wait. If you found yourself hesitating, was it because you wanted to just do this kind of a quick check-in with yourself to make sure your answer was absolutely honest? I mean, look, there's no one checking up on you except you. But was it because you noticed that I said be in integrity, not live in integrity? Or just some vague feeling of unease, perhaps, that the question brought up for you? I'll tell you what my response was. I always desire to be in integrity. But I know at times I miss the mark, because I have moved that bar higher and higher and higher throughout my life. What satisfied my sense of integrity in the past, it just doesn't measure up anymore. Those of you who have listened to my show before, or those of you who know me personally, you'll know that I was an active alcoholic and an addict. Do you think what I thought of as integrity in those days would even remotely qualify for me now? And yet, I had my own version of integrity. I'll get into some of the oddness of that later. Let's put aside those dark days for a moment and move ahead to when I was in recovery, because being in integrity became a key part of my recovery. It actually became a warning flag. If I found myself kind of slipping and sliding on the whole integrity issue, that was clearly a sign of impending trouble for me. If I found myself choosing whether or not to be in integrity, I had already shown that I was not living in integrity. Okay, very big distinction. Remember the physical definitions that pointed out that a system or mechanism cannot perform sometimes and under some circumstances if it was to be considered to have systemic integrity. It was about consistency and adherence to standards. Well, same thing applies to us. So how do you choose to define integrity for yourself? What do you choose to base it on? Why are these questions important? All too often, we want to believe that as long as we are acting in a way that is consistent with our personal values and our personal code of ethics, that we are living in integrity. Bear with me for a moment on this one. There was a TV show that ran for quite a few years called The Sopranos. And the lead character was a mafia chieftain, the name of Tony Soprano. Tony gave excellent examples nearly every episode of how living in integrity looks completely different for one person than for another. No one outside his circle could possibly imagine that this man's propensity for violence and crime could possibly be something to admire or praise. But Tony saw it as protecting his business, providing for his family, and living by his own strict code. So, like it or not, in his mind, Tony was living his life in integrity. Now, let's consider his wife, Carmela. Carmela loved their house, loved the furnishings, their vacations, the wealth that Tony's life afforded them. She knew all too well where the money came from, what Tony had to do to provide that standard of living for them. Nevertheless, she pushed all of those thoughts down, refused to look at them. Carmela certainly was not living in integrity. She chose to be in integrity. I mean, she wasn't a bad person. But she just chose to be in integrity when it suited her, and to turn a blind eye when it did not. Interestingly enough, Tony began seeing a therapist. Actually, the show starts with his going in to see a therapist, not because of an inner struggle for meaning or authenticity, but to help overcome an anxiety associated with all the violence around him. And eventually he would come to understand the violence caused by him. In the course of these sessions, as he came to see the hypocrisy in his life choices and in his code, which was his bedrock, his foundation, it all began to crumble. So, there can be a real disconnect between integrity and morality. Now, most of us are not criminals, mafia chieftains, assassins, what have you. Yet, we too can struggle with living in integrity. So we get to choose what we value as being important to our sense of integrity. Do we base it on how we were raised or in what culture we live in? You know, someone from New York City might have been raised to speak very differently and speak emphatically and directly and frankly. And for them, that would be staying in integrity, speaking their mind, being direct. Whereas someone from Tokyo might be much more circumspect and deferential, which would be living in integrity for them. So do we choose to base it on the rules and regulations of an organization or a community to which we belong? Perhaps We even make it situational. But if we believe that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, or the rules for behavior you can just throw them out if you're like, on spring break or you're on that long-awaited vacation. Well, you get the idea. Now, here's a complicating factor. I have seen all too often that living in integrity does not necessarily make you the most popular person around. Imagine. There can be tremendous pressure at times, as Peggy has pointed out. There can be tremendous pressure at times to buckle under to popular opinion, or, and I love this phrase, to go along to get along. But hey, the expression, if you don't have your health, what do you have? Well, folks, if you're not living in integrity, what are you doing? Now, believe me, this is not my wagging a finger at you and scolding you. Far from it. And not just because I need to look at myself from time to time. No, it's a matter of what happens within your own mind, heart, and spirit when you realize you are not living up to your own values. It can be tremendously painful, both for your spirit as well as physically. The stress that can be generated, and more so the level of stress that can be generated, is a really good indication of how far outside your own boundaries you've gone, how far from your own integrity you have drifted. So as much as I could say living in integrity is important to how you are in the world, I can also say it's key to how you are with yourself. Self-respect, self-worth do not come from what others say about you. They are indicators of the health of your relationship with yourself. Now, this brings us to the question of spiritual integrity, or the idea of putting integrity into a spiritual context. I promised you we'd get to it. Always keep my promises. Part of being in integrity. Now, this gets absolutely, completely personal, meaning that a person's spirituality, or to be more accurate, a person's understanding of their spirituality is about as personal as things can possibly be. So what I'm offering here is this. Your understanding of your spirituality forms the foundation for how you live your life. It does so because it forms the basis of your beliefs. Your beliefs are the bedrock of your integrity. Your integrity informs your choices. Your choices either support or undermine your integrity. Now, I recognize that tying your understanding of your spirituality ultimately and intimately to your integrity could be seen as a bold statement by some, even controversial one even. That's what I'm here for, to challenge, to explore, to question, to invite, stir things up. As always, I will explain my position. Since I believe the following to be true, and this is just a very brief summation of what I believe. And remember, we're talking from the spiritual context here. God, or the one spirit, whatever term works for you, is all there is. Each one of us is an individualization of that one spirit. Therefore, there is a unity to all of life. I am a co-creator of my life experience. So these are foundational beliefs for me. Remember, this was just a brief summarization of what I believe, sort of the essence of it. But these foundational beliefs for me, the idea of being in integrity rather than living in integrity, wouldn't work. Not with those beliefs. It just doesn't cut it. I need to live in integrity. So my beliefs define what integrity is for me. And that's important. I'm saying it's for me, not necessarily for anyone else. My integrity informs and guides my choices. It's gotten to the point where my integrity requires certain actions of me. With the tension that builds within me becomes a source of pain, emotional, and sometimes even physical. Have you ever spoken of trusting your gut? That same mechanism taken from the other side. All right. Or when you do something that you just know is wrong, and you get that constriction, or you get that nauseating feeling, or you get that hole, right? Those are all examples of that. I've discovered that some choices that, while they're not actually dependent upon integrity, well, some of those sort of choices come up as a result of living in integrity. Choosing to trust my judgment. Choosing from a place of faith rather than a place of fear. Choosing to accept the repercussions of my integrity supporting actions. Or let's put it in the decidedly unpoetic words of the author Jen Sincero, who wrote a book called You Are a Badass. I love this book. She said, you have to keep the faith, always, even when your ass is on the line. Wow, that was eloquent, wasn't it? But in all seriousness, think about it. When is your integrity really the biggest issue for you? It's not when you see something that you should be doing and you do it and all goes as it should. No. The real key with integrity, the real test with integrity, is when you do get these outside pressures, when you do get this push to do things differently, to say things differently, to not say things, to not do things, to not be who and whose you truly are. That's pretty significant. That is pretty significant. So, more than anything else, when I consider integrity and I consider choice, I can see that for me, the choices that I make in my life need to align with my integrity if I am going to live my life fully. Every time that I compromise, and I don't mean just simply compromise, which is not a bad word, it's not a bad thing, but when I compromise on my beliefs, my values, when I compromise my integrity, that is where I have a problem. As a matter of fact, going back to the physical context again, when a system is not in integrity, the term that we use for that is that the system is compromised. All right. The system is compromised, and it's usually because of either a lack of a connection or the fault in a connection or something that simply cannot stand the pressure. Okay. So gives us a very clear idea of where we need to put our energies if we wish to make choices that truly are in alignment with our integrity, and if we want our integrity to reflect our choices. I'll leave you with these words from the author, philosopher, theologian, educator, and civil rights leader, Howard Thurman. He wrote, "Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." Indeed, there's a lot more to what he wrote, of course, but that is, for our time today, that is what I wanted to focus on. Now, I would love to hear what you feel about choice and integrity. So please feel free to email me at zodemuro@gmail.com. Let me get that up here. There we go. Okay, so you can email me here, and I would be delighted to hear what you have to say about integrity. Also, if there's something that you would like me to address relating to choice, I'd love to have that information. You know, one of these days I want to do a session of this show, and I want to talk about the choices that people have made that were absolutely crucial in their lives. So if you have something in your life that was truly a life-changing choice, I would love to hear about that. And I don't want to put together a show all around all of these different life choices that people have made. So once again, you can email me at zodemuro@gmail.com. Delighted, absolutely delighted to have that information. You know, I do truly appreciate your spending time with me, but I also would invite you to go to our website, ntmedia.org. I want you to take a look at all that we have to offer. You know, we're literally a global network, and we have so much going on today, just today alone. In addition to various prayer times that we have, today the next prayer time coming up would be this evening at 7:15 a.m. Pacific time. That would be 8:15 Mountain time. We have prayer. And then actually very soon, about half an hour or so, at 12 noon Pacific time, that's 1 p.m. Mountain time, check out Finding the Joy in the Journey with practitioner and soon-to-be minister, the remarkable Gina Colvario-Krupka. And at 1 p.m. Pacific time, that's 2 p.m. Mountain time, there's a Vibrant Living Hour with practitioner Ken Ludwig. Are you looking for prayer, meditation, information, discussion? We've got so much more. If you can, please go to our website and go to ntmedia.org and find that donate button. Help us bring all this goodness to the largest possible audience as we work to make this a world that works for everyone. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until we meet again, I'll invite you to choose wisely. Much love and many, many blessings. Namaste.